Hi, Mary. Thanks for being with me today and answering just a few questions. I know everyone is so wanting to help. We hear about refugee situations all around the world, and our hearts go out to people, and we want so badly to do something good and to be able to help each other. And yet it can be a very complex situation. And I know you have been working with refugee resettlement for a number of years, and perhaps you can share a little bit about your experience and some of the things that are often misunderstood about refugee resettlement. First, let me ask, what exactly is a refugee? And when people are talking about refugees that they hear about in the news, is that different than the refugees that you serve in the Lutheran Social Services Refugee Resettlement Program?
I think it is different. LSS's Refugee Resettlement Program came into its beginnings in 1974, when the United States government created the Refugee Resettlement Program. So refugees are admitted to the United States through the Department of State. They kind of act as the gatekeeper. And people that come through the Department of State gates have permanent, legal, documented status for the rest of their lives as long as they're law-abiding. They have the right and the responsibility to apply for green card status at 1 year, which is called adjustment of status, adjusting their status from a refugee to a permanent resident alien. And then at 5 years, they're also eligible to apply for citizenship and become a permanent citizen of the United States. So in terms of refugee resettlement here in the United States, because of the location of our country, we would get very few people actually fleeing the situations that we're seeing right now in Ukraine. So when people leave their home country and flee to another country, in the United States, we would call that an asylee, a person who comes to their home, leaves their home country, comes to our country and asks for asylum. That's what's happening with Ukrainians right now going into Poland. They are going into that second country seeking safety. In terms of asylum, they may be able to stay there for a while. They may be able to return home if peace comes back to Ukraine. And that would be wonderful. People get to go back home. If they're not able to go back home, the next hope is that people are able to start new lives in a country very close to their home country, so that they don't have the travel, the displacement, the cultural dissonance of moving to a completely foreign, different land. Some things might be a little bit more familiar to them in that second country. If that is not an option, if there is no durable solution to their displacement, then and only then would they be considered for refugee resettlement. If their names were given to the Department of State, the Department of State does all the processing and background checks and admits them to the United States as refugees. That's what technically makes a refugee, is that third country. Fleeing one country, seeking shelter in a second, ultimately resettled permanently in a third country. So in the United States, a refugee is a very specific classification. Mm-hmm. People who might be coming from, like, say, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, they may come to the United States seeking that safety and shelter. For purposes in the United States, they would be called asylees, people seeking shelter and asking our government if they can please stay here. The government puts them through an asylum process. They have to apply. They have to pay for the asylum process and application. They have to go before an immigration judge, and they have to tell a compelling story of why they are asking for permanent status here in the United States. If a judge declines their request, they have to leave the country within 60 days. If the judge approves their request, they're considered an adjudicated asylee, and they're then eligible for permanent legal status, just like a refugee here in the United States.
Thank you, Mary. I know that's a lot of twists and turns there, but a lot of complicated what ifs and what does that mean? So there might be some people that are that are here in the United States who recently came here because they had the means to get on a plane and get here from places like the Ukraine. So they may not have gone through that process of the formal refugee program, and they would not be necessarily brought to LSS during our refugee resettlement program work. So what about people like that that just happen to be here? They would fall into that same situation of having to apply for asylum, correct?
I believe that they would. You know, I'm not an immigration attorney. I'm not an immigration expert at all. I can only give you my working knowledge from our office operations on a daily basis. As of October 1st, the administration granted all Afghans temporary protected status. If they apply for that TPS status, they would be eligible to remain in the United States for 18 months. However, that still does not give them any sort of documented status beyond you are legally able to stay here. For the Ukrainians, that temporary protected status started March 1st. So if you were fortunate enough to realize what was coming and that you needed to flee and could flee and came to the United States before March 1st, you are now granted temporary protected status. If you arrived after March 1st, that status is uncertain, and I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. I don't know about the application process. People should consult immediately with an immigration attorney as soon as possible. And that's really, really important.
Well, thank you. I know that the work in refugee resettlement is always changing. And I just want to emphasize that what we're talking about is current to the best of our knowledge as of today, as of March 28th, 2022, this is what we know. And there could be some things coming on the horizon that might help additional refugees coming from places like the Ukraine that may come to the United States. Of course, Lutheran Social Services will continue to work with our partners and the Department of State and Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service to make sure that we're serving as many people as we can. And we know that the support of people like you who are watching this are what really make this possible for us to be there when we're needed. We do some update calls every week where we have the opportunity for people to join in and ask questions and hear the latest. And that is something that we could share with others. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to me at church.relations@lsswis.org. And we will get you the link for that so that you can join us too. Thank you so much, Mary, for that quick little update about what's happening and helping to clarify a little bit about the refugee resettlement program. Thank you so much.